You think you know the story. A poor boy, a handful of magic beans, and a towering stalk that pierces the clouds to a land where a greedy giant hoards golden treasure. But what if I told you that Jack and the Beanstalk is older than the Bible, older than the pyramids, older than writing itself? Beneath this innocent children's tale sleeps a secret so ancient it has been whispered around campfires for more than 5,000 years. A tale of giants, of gods, of forbidden realms, and something infinitely darker. Once you hear the real myth behind Jack and the Beanstalk, you will never look at that childhood story the same way again. Welcome back to the Mythos Echo. Before we descend into the abyss of its true origins, let's remind ourselves of the version you think you know. Once upon a time, in a crumbling cottage on the edge of a forgotten village, there lived a widow and her only son, Jack. They were starving. With nothing left but their cow, Jack's mother sent him to market to sell the beast and buy bread. On the dusty road, Jack met a hooded stranger who offered not coins, but 5 strange, shimmering beans. Magic beans, the man rasped. Young, reckless, and desperate, Jack traded the cow for the handful of seeds. When he returned home empty-handed, his mother wept in rage, hurling the beans out the window before sending Jack to bed without supper. But in the dead of night, something stirred in the earth. A colossal beanstalk erupted from the soil, twisting and writhing like a living serpent, climbing higher and higher until its leaves vanished into the clouds. At dawn, Jack stared up in wonder, then began to climb. Higher and higher he went, the world below shrinking to a patchwork quilt, until he emerged into a strange sky realm. There stood an immense stone castle, its doors taller than oaks. He knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a giantess with eyes like storm clouds. "Run, little boy," she hissed. "My husband smells human flesh from leagues away, and he devours boys like you for breakfast." Yet pity softened her heart. She hid Jack by the hearth, fed him bread still warm from the oven, cheese thick as gold, and milk sweet as cream. Then the earth shook. Boom, boom, boom. The giant strode in, each footfall rattling the rafters. Jack cowered inside the copper oven as the monstrous voice thundered, "Fee-fi-fo-fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." The giantess denied any intruder. Grumbling, the giant devoured 3 whole oxen, drank a lake of ale, then commanded his bags of gold be brought forth. He counted the coins until his eyelids drooped, and soon he snored like a hurricane. When silence fell, Jack slipped from hiding, seized a heavy sack of gold, and fled down the beanstalk. For a time, he and his mother lived in comfort. But greed is a hungry thing. Twice more, Jack climbed. The second time, he stole a hen that laid eggs of pure gold. The third time, he took a golden harp that played itself, its voice like liquid starlight. But as Jack fled, the harp cried out, "Master, master, I am stolen!" The giant woke with a roar that split the heavens and gave chase down the stalk, shaking the sky itself. Jack reached the ground first. "Mother, the axe!" Together they hacked at the beanstalk. Thorns of wood flew like spears. With a final blow, the stalk cracked, splintered, and tore free from the earth. The giant plummeted, roaring, through endless sky until he struck the ground with a sound like the end of the world. He was dead. Jack and his mother kept the gold, the hen, and the harp, and lived richly ever after. Or so the children's version ends. That cheerful tale is the one polished and printed by the folklorist Joseph Jacobs in 1890, drawn from oral tellings he collected across England. But Jack's story did not begin in Victorian nurseries. It was already ancient when the first version appeared in print, a mocking parody published in London in 1734, titled Jack Spriggins and the Enchanted Bean. The booklet ridiculed the idea of beans growing overnight into the sky, which means, even then, in the 1730s, everyone already knew the story well enough to laugh at it. 70 years later, in 1807, another printed version appeared, this time by Benjamin Tabard. But Tabard gave Jack a noble makeover. A fairy appears and reveals that the giant murdered Jack's father and stole his inheritance. Suddenly, Jack is no longer a thief. He is a righteous avenger, reclaiming what is his. A very Victorian rewriting, sanding down the rough edges of an older, wilder tale where the hero was never meant to be good, only cunning. Because in the raw oral versions Jacobs collected, there is no fairy, no murdered father, no moral justification. There is only Jack, a trickster, a liar, a thief who wins through audacity and luck, not virtue. And then there is the giant's chant, "Fee-fi-fo-fum." We recite it like nursery nonsense, but Shakespeare put almost the same words in the mouth of a monster in King Lear in 1606, and even then, he was quoting something already considered ancient. 17th century writers called it an old rhyme of the giants. Some scholars believe it may echo lost Celtic or Old Norse phrases, perhaps a hunting cry that once meant, "Behold food, good to eat." Giants stride through every ancient mythology. David topples Goliath. Odysseus blinds the Cyclops Polyphemus. The Norse gods war eternally against the frost giants of Jotunheim. But what if these are not fantasies? What if they are distorted memories of real peoples, taller, stronger, older inhabitants of the land who were conquered, demonized, and turned into monsters by the victors who told the stories afterward? And what if Jack is not the hero at all, but the invader? A boy who climbs into a realm that does not belong to him, steals its sacred treasures, murders its guardian, and destroys the bridge behind him. That theory once sounded like romantic overreach, until science stepped in. In 2016, folklorists and statisticians applied phylogenetic analysis, the same method used to trace the evolution of species and languages, to hundreds of versions of the tale worldwide. They classified Jack and the Beanstalk as Arne Thompson Uther type 328. The boy steals the ogre's treasure. Identical stories appear from Scandinavia to India, from Italy to the Middle East. A poor youth, a monstrous guardian above the clouds or under the earth, a daring theft of magical objects. Using linguistic and statistical modeling, the researchers traced the tale back more than 5,000 years, to a time before writing, before cities, before bronze, to the Proto-Indo-European people who lived on the Pontic-Caspian steppe between roughly 4,500 and 2,500 BCE. These were the ancestors of nearly every European and many South Asian peoples. They left no palaces, no scriptures, only windswept graves beneath grass-covered mounds called kurgans. And somehow, across millennia of migration, war, and forgetting, one of their campfire stories survived almost intact inside the fairy tale we teach children today. Jack is not alone in his theft. He belongs to one of the oldest story patterns on Earth, the culture hero who trespasses into a forbidden realm and steals a divine gift for humanity. Prometheus climbs to Olympus and steals fire. Odin sneaks into Jotunheim and steals the mead of poetry. Gilgamesh enters the sacred cedar forest, kills its guardian Humbaba, and takes the trees of the gods. Each brings back something that transforms the human world: fire, poetry, civilization itself. And the pathway Jack uses? A living vine that grows overnight into the sky. That living vine that explodes overnight into the heavens is no whimsical fairy tale flourish. It is the world tree itself, the axis mundi, the cosmic pillar that every ancient culture placed at the center of existence. Yggdrasil, whose roots drink from the underworld and whose branches cradle the stars. The sacred Seba of the Maya, rising through 13 layers of sky. The inverted Ashvatha of the Hindus, roots in heaven, branches weeping toward earth. Every one of them a ladder, a rope, a road between the living and whatever waits beyond the clouds. But there is a far blacker way to read the tale, one that flips the story inside out and leaves frost on your spine. In the ancient Mediterranean, beans were not food. They were forbidden, unholy, feared. Pythagoras and his followers refused even to walk through a field of them. They believed each bean imprisoned the soul of the dead. The pale bloom on a fava bean was the ghost trying to escape. The black root twisting in the soil looked to their terrified eyes, exactly like a human embryo clawing its way back to life. The gas that bloats the belly after eating them, that was the trapped spirit sighing its way out of your body. And the plant itself, shooting upward in the dark, was understood to be a living bridge, a green umbilical cord, tying this world to the land of the dead. So when Jack hands over the cow, warm, breathing, giver of milk and life, for a handful of cold, dead beans, he is not merely being foolish. He is performing a funeral exchange, life for death, flesh for spirit. That night the beanstalk erupts toward the sky, because, in countless ancient cosmologies, the realm of the dead is not beneath our feet, it is above. Souls climb the smoke of the pyre, ascend the silver river of the Milky Way, ride the branches of the world tree into the blinding light beyond the clouds. And there, at the summit, Jack finds exactly what every culture says awaits the dead. A stern guardian, an ever-singing harp, the music of the spheres that only the departed can hear. A hen laying eggs of solid gold, food that never ends, sacks of coins that refill themselves, the wealth of eternity. He steals the treasures of paradise and runs. Then he saws the bridge in half. He severs the only road between the living and the dead, ensuring no one, not even death itself, can follow him back. This is not a children's story. This is a death and return myth older than cities. Inanna, stripped naked and hanged on a hook in the underworld before clawing her way back to the light. Orpheus crossed the dark river and almost dragged Eurydice home. Demusi, Adonis, Osiris, all the green gods who die with the harvest and rise again when the grain turns gold. Jack climbs. Jack confronts the warden of the dead. Jack plunders immortality. Jack descends alive, and Jack burns the ladder behind him, so the grave can never reclaim what he has taken. So maybe, just maybe, Jack did not rob a giant. Maybe Jack died the moment those beans hit the earth. Maybe he climbed the road every soul is destined to climb. And maybe, against every law written in starlight and dust, he cheated death and came home. Sleep well, Mythos echoes. Next time we follow a piper dressed in every color of the rainbow into the blood-sowed truth behind Hamlin. If you have the nerve, the video is waiting. I'll be here,